Okay, so good morning. Today's daf is daf Chavtet, the last daf in the third chapter of Shevuot. We are going to finish our discussion of Shevuot Bitui and also Shevuot Shav. Again, as a reminder, Shevuot Bitui, in general, we understand that to mean if you swear that you're going to do something, or you swear that you're not going to do something, or you swear that you did something, or you swear that you didn't do something. So those four cases, in all those cases, according to Rabbi Akiva, if you and according to the Mishnah that we'll see this morning to start with, if you say that if you swear falsely, if you did it on purpose, you're going to get lashes, and if you did it by accident, so then you are going to have to bring in korban olav yored, a variable korban depending on your wealth. If you have more wealth, then you have to bring a larger animal. If you have less wealth, then you could even bring grain. Okay, so that is a Shevuot Bitui, and that's going to be the finishing the thing we're going to be talking about. But we'll also get to talk about a vain oath that was actually teed up in yesterday's daf. And so let me share my screen, and we will really get started. So we are up to the Mishnah at the top of 29a of Kaftet Amud Aleph, as again we complete the third chapter in Masechah Shavuos. So, having mentioned vain oaths at the end of the last Mishnah, noting that they trigger lashes for intentional sins and are exempt for a sin from a sin offering for unwitting violations, this Mishnah details precisely what constitutes a vain oath. So, Ezohi Shavuos Shav, what is a vain oath? Nishba l'shanos as hayadu al ha'adam.
Which rabbi we're going to have?
We're going to have, well, it's all going to be according to Rabbi Akiva, but we're going to be mentioning Rabbi Meir a couple of times. So those are the rabbis that we'll be having today. But in any event, so if you swear that you know something, that if you swear something that changes what everybody knows. So if I were to swear, what do you think this table's made out of, the table?
Wood.
Well, no, this table is right here. It's plastic. Plastic. So the table here is plastic. So if I were to swear that this table is made out of gold, would I be right? No, I would not be right. Exactly. And so as a result, that would be saying that would be a vain oath. Amar al ha'amud shel even shehu shel zahav. If you say about a stone column that it's made out of gold, that would be a false oath, a vain oath. I should be careful. Not false oath is something different. I mean, it is false, but it's going to be a vain oath. V'al ha'ish ashehu isha, and about a man that it's a woman, or al v'al isha shehi ish, or a woman that's a man. Bottom line is that if it's known that the person is in fact the other, and you swear falsely about it, so then that's considered a vain oath. That is answer number one. There are going to be three answers that we're going to be given because there are three categories of vain oaths that we're going to talk about in our Mishnah. There is a fourth category, which we'll discuss in a moment. So, nishba al davar she'ef sharlo, or you swear something that's impossible. No. So, im lo ra'iti gamal sheporech ba'avir, if I didn't see a flying camel in the air, do camels fly? No, they don't fly. So that's a false oath. That would be a vain oath. Everybody knows that camels don't fly.
So if you get chickens that mention the commercial.
Yeah, exactly. So v'im lo ra'isi nachash k'kora space habad. Or I saw a snake that was so big. It was, how big was it? It was so big. It was the size of a beam in a press. That's how large it was. And so again, not really something that is going to be true. And as a result, is going to be considered a vain oath. So that is category number 2 of vain oath. So something that's impossible. Category number 3, Amar la'edim, you say to witnesses, Bo'u ha'iduni, come and testify for me. Shvuah shaloni idcha, and they reply, oh, we don't have any testimony for you. We swear that we don't have any testimony for you. So, and then, or nishba levatel es hamitzvah, or any other commandment, because there is a commandment that if you know testimony for somebody and somebody asks you to come and testify, then you need to come and testify. You're not allowed to lie and say that you don't have the any. No, well, that's a good question. Can you refuse? I'm not 100% sure. I don't think that you can refuse so easily. Now, the question is whether you can charge for your time, etc. That we'll see. But
is because what happens if your physical protection is compromised by your customer?
that could be. That's an interesting question. I don't know the answer to
We'll
that
leave that
question.
for
Well,
later.
yeah, that's gonna the court is gonna need to provide protection.
Right.
So, and so, or if you swear to violate some kind of mitzvah, for example, shelo laso sukkah, you're not going to make a sukkah, shelo lito lulav, you're not going to take a lulav, shelo laniach tefillin, you're not going to put on tefillin. In all of those cases, so the category number 3 is swearing to violate a commandment. So the 3 that we've got is saying something that everybody knows is not true, something that's impossible. So meaning when you say something that's not true, it's technically possible.
Right.
It's just not true. Here, the second category is something that's impossible. The third category is one where you're violating a mitzvah. Now, there's actually a fourth category that is referenced in the Yerushalmi, Talmud Yerushalmi, and that is the category of swearing to something obvious. If I swear that a stone is a stone, if I swear that this is a table, if I swear something along those lines, and that is also considered a vain oath. So there are 2 basic approaches. The Ritva notes 2 basic approaches as to why maybe that category is not mentioned here in this Gemara. Approach number 1 is to say, well, that category is actually only rabbinically treated like a vain oath, but from the Torah, it's not considered a vain oath. The Ritva does not think that. The Ritva thinks that actually it is a biblical oath, and that's because the Rambam and the Rif seem to paskin that it's a prohibited oath, and so he suggests that actually the reason that it's not mentioned is because we are only mentioning the vain oaths that are like a Shevuot bitoy. And remember, a Shevuot bitoy has some falsehood to it, and so as a result, if you swear that a rock is a rock, or a table's a table, or whatever is in whatever, so then there actually isn't any falsehood to it. And so as a result, we're only trying and raise now the issues that are similar to that. So that's what the Ritva says as to why we don't mention the fourth category. So again, the total of 4 categories are: you swear something that is absolutely false, and everybody knows it. You swear to something that's impossible, or you swear to something that is violating a commandment, or you swear to something that is totally obvious. Those are the 4 categories of a vain oath, and that allows us now to continue as the Mishnah continues. Zohi Shevuot Shav. This is a vain oath. Shechayven al Zedona Makos. You are, if you violate it intentionally, you are subject to lashes. But when it comes to doing it by accident, if you just forgot, or if you have some mental issue that as a result is causing you to say these things, or whatever other reason, and you didn't really intend to make any kind of oath, well, then you are certainly exempt. You have not violated Torah, and you're not subject to a korban. Okay, so last category. Now we're going to detail a related ruling, because there is a situation that is included in what the categories that we've already said, but it isn't obvious as to how it's included in the categories. Shvuah okel kikarzu. If I swear that I'm going to eat this cookie, v'shvuah shelo ochlena, and then after I swear that I'm going to eat it, I swear that I'm not going to eat it.
Wow.
So now the second oath that I made is saying that I'm going to violate the first oath that I made. So harishona Shevuot bitoy. The first one is a Shevuot bitoy. Remember, the Shevuot bitoy is I swear I'm going to do something. I swear I'm not going to do something. I swear I did something. I swear I didn't. I didn't do something.
What kind of cookie? Chocolate chip?
Yeah, let's make a chocolate chip. That would be really yummy. So the hashniya, but the second oath that essentially says I'm going to violate my first oath, Shevuot shav, that is a vain oath. Because what am I doing? As Rashi says, v'hashniya Shevuot shav, 4th line down in the narrow lines on Kaf Teram and Aleph, sha'arei nishba levatel as a mitzvah. You've effectively sworn to violate a commandment, because the Torah tells you that if you swear that you're going to do something,
Gotta do it.
you got to do it. That's exactly right. Stan's exactly right. So Achla Avar Al Shvuah, if you actually went ahead and you ate it the way your initial oath was, well, then you've violated the vain oath. Lo Achla Avar Al Shvuah Spitoi. And if you didn't eat it, well, then you violated the Shvuah Spitoi, because you violated what you said. You said you were going to eat it, and then you didn't eat it. Now, the Gemara is going to tell us that, in fact, the language here should be understood is that, of course, you violated the vain oath. No matter what you did, you violated the vain oath. The point is that if you also then don't eat the cookie as you originally said, well, then not only have you violated the vain oath, but you violated your Shuas Bitoy, because you've said your initial oath was saying that you're going to eat the cookie, and then you didn't eat the cookie.
Right.
So as a result, it would be violating both, even though the Mishnah doesn't tell us. We'll get to that at the end of the day today. Amar Ula, V'hu shenikar legimel b'nei Adam. So the Gemara starts with, what's the situation? What does it mean that it's well known? So known to people. So Ula says it means that if 3 people know, then pretty much everybody knows. So nishba al davar she'i efshar lo im lo reisi gamal poreach ba'avir. And then we said that the next category was that if you swear to something that's impossible, such as if I swear, if I didn't see a flying camel. Now, the Gemara wonders, why did it say if I didn't see a flying camel? Shouldn't the oath be, I swear that I did see a flying camel? And the answer, so now that's the Gemara's question. Shvuah shera'iti lo ka'amar. It doesn't say that you swore that I did see. Rather, my im lo ra'isi. What does it mean that you're swearing that I didn't see? So Abaye Amar, Tani Shvuah sherisi. No, just change the language. As often the Bachlok code between Abaye and Rava, Abaye will say, we could just change the language of our Mishnah or understand it differently. And Rava Amar, no, Rava says, you know what? I can fit it in. Because Ba'omer Ye'asru Kol Perush Ba'olam Alai. All the fruit and produce of the world will be prohibited to me. If I didn't see a flying camel. So as a result, the idea is that the Mishnah is just giving us the end of the oath. The oath is really about some kind of object that's going to be prohibited to the person who's swearing, and he's swearing that it's going to be prohibited to him. He's like emphasizing the fact that I most definitely saw a flying camel, because if I didn't see a flying camel, then all these things are going to be prohibited to me. Okay, so that explains that. So Amarle Ravina Ravashi. So Ravina asks Ravashi, Vidilma Hai Gavra Tzipora Rabachazi. Well, 1 second. Maybe how do we know that we are referring to our language? Maybe when the person says he saw a flying camel, he saw a very large bird that he called camel. That he saw a large bird, and he called it camel. Right? Hey, camel, my bird, and now when he's swearing, he's swearing based on his own language usage. Now, and so the point is how do you know? How do you know that that's not the case? Or why do we say in our Mishnah that this is a violation? Maybe it shouldn't be. And if you want to say that we should always follow the meaning that the guy has, that we understand that the person has, and we don't focus on the meaning that the person himself has. Tanya, we have the following brisa that shows that we focus on a person's own intentions. So when the judges cause a litigant to swear, omrimlo, they say to him, you should know. We're not causing you to swear using your own knowledge. Rather, Ella al datenu. You are swearing based on our knowledge or on our understanding. But al das based in and on the understanding of the court. So my taima, why do we make the litigant swear in that way? La mishum de amrinan dilma iskundre yahevle. Maybe the guy gave, so we're talking about where let's say Stan owes Mark $100, and we're worried that what Stan did is he took this remote and he said, I'm going to write on it $100. And that now this is going to be my definition of $100.
Yeah.
And then he gives it to Mark. So does Mark think that he got $100? No, he didn't get the $100. He got the remote.
Yeah.
Or in the case of the what the mission of the Gemara is saying, maybe he gave him some wood chips, v'asik lehuzuze, and he called them coins, right? And do you want wood chips or do you want money? Yeah, you want the money. And so now when Stan swears that he paid Mark back, he's swearing adaita didei kamishtaba. He's swearing based on his own knowledge. I gave him something that I call $100. It reminds me of the classic joke that you borrow $100 and you say, I'm going to give you back 100 doll hairs. That was we did when we were kids. Instead of giving back a dollar for a dollar, you gave a doll hair for every dollar. So yeah, nobody liked that. All right. Anyway, so the Gemara says, so doesn't that show that we care about what the person who's swearing thinks? And the Gemara answers no. It is not. When we make the litigant swear, we're not actually worried about what he thinks. We're worried about something different. We're worried about the cane of Rava. Now, what is that cane of Rava? So Rashi tells us what the cane of Rava is talking about. Hasam mishum kanya de Rava laolam basar pum yazlin. Really, we follow what the guy said. We're now Rashi 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 from the top of Rashi in the narrow lines 9, 12, 15, 16 lines down in the narrow lines. End of the line. Hasam mishum kanya de Rava laolam basar pum yazlin. Really, we follow what the guy said, and it's the public understanding of what his words mean. And so, as a result, $100 cannot refer to 100 doll hairs. Okay, that's not the truth, and you can't call this remote $100 and say I've given you back your $100. So v'had itzrich lan l'meimar lo al datcha. And that which so then how do we understand that brisa, right? The brisa says that we make the person swear not on your knowledge, but on our knowledge, mishum de pepumya yeshvua v'ramaut, because really there are some trickeries that can be done. Kagon to yahev lekana. So, for example, imagine a hollow cane, right? A walking stick. V'nasan hamos l'tocho. And you put the money, so Stan puts $100, which he owes to Mark, into a walking stick. And then he says to Stan, V'hivkidu etzlo, and he gives the walking stick to Mark. Mark has no idea that there's $100 in it. No. But is it true that that Stan has given you back $100? Yes, because it's in the walking stick. And so then Stan swears that, in fact, he gave back the money. And then, of course, after he swears, he goes and he takes back his walking stick. And so as a result, he's now successfully sworn that he paid him back. And in fact, he hasn't paid him back. So there was actually story along this line that's told in the Nedarim Daf Kaf Hey Amud Aleph that is exactly what happened. Fortunately, the Mark character in that story got so upset he threw down the the stick, and it broke open, and they found the coins, and the cheating was discovered. But the bottom line is that we're worried about that kind of underhandedness, where everything he says is true. So as a result, even according to our understanding of the words, it would be true. And so the point is we're saying you have to swear according to what we understand the facts are. You can't use some kind of subterfuge to get away with it. And therefore, when we talk about our case in our Mishnah, it doesn't work to say that the guy called his big bird a camel by the name camel, because that is not what an ordinary person understands, and therefore we're going to follow the ordinary person's understanding of the words. Now, of course, a person can get away with making the oath in a valid manner, right? He could say, "Oh, I saw a bird that I call camel flying." Well, that would be fine. That would be
Yeah.
fine. It wouldn't be a problem.
He's
So
explaining
he's
himself.
explaining himself. So the point is only if you don't explain yourself, then we're going to follow what those words ordinarily mean. Okay. So now we tried once to prove that a vain oath is going to sorry for not scrolling. We tried once that a vain oath is not going to that maybe we could use our own interpretation. We're going to try again to say, hey, maybe we need to follow a person's own interpretation, because listen to what the following Tashma v'chein matzinu kehishpia Moshe es Yisrael. You know what? It's actually the next part of this same brisa, but you know what the brisa says? Similarly, Moshe had the Jewish people swear at the end of Moshe's life, in Parshas Nitzavim, Atem Nitzavim Hayom Kulchem, that you're all standing here, and Hashem makes them all swear, and so Moshe makes them all swear that in fact they are going to observe the Torah and the mitzvot. And so Amar Lahen, Moshe says to them, and Rashi says, V'chein matzinu. It's the next Rashi after the one we just finished. Diksiv, it says in Dvarim Kavtet, Lo idchem levadchem. I'm not making this oath with you alone. Now, the implication is I'm making this oath with future generations, but we're going to understand those words as lo kisha atem svurim. It's not with your thoughts that we're going to kasher lebilevavchem, with your thoughts in your own hearts that we're going to understand what this oath, but it's according to me. Amar lahem de'u, no. Shelo al datchem ani mashpiatchem. I'm not using your knowledge to swear. Ella al das hamakom v'al dati. I'm using God's understanding and my understanding. V'amai. So why does Moshe bother with that? If again, according to our understanding right now, that we always swear based on the ordinary person's understanding of the facts, that we would say, so why does he need to use that kind of language to swear, to cause the Jewish people to swear? Because he could have just said that I'm going to have you swear to whatever God has commanded. Aren't we worried that they're going to think that when they say God, it means a different God, and therefore it's going to be based on their understanding? And Tosas asks a great question here, because I don't understand. Like, what is Moshe doing? He's so worried about the Jewish people not observing mitzvot that he's causing them to swear to do the mitzvot. But Kishehishbia, like, take a look at the Tosos. It's the fifth Tosos from the bottom. Kishehishbia Moshe es Yisrael. Kitzas kasha. It's a little difficult. Ma haisa moelis hashvua. How's the oath going to help? Kamosha haya yaresh yavodu avodas kochavim. Just as they should be afraid that they're going to violate the prohibition of worshiping idols. Kamokain haya leira penyavru b'hashvua. I'm sorry. Just as Moshe should be afraid that they're going to violate the prohibition of avodah zarah, he should be afraid that they're going to violate the prohibition of oaths. So it highlights that actually on some level, right, people have a natural understanding that violating something that they said is somehow worse than doing some command that God says. And because if you say it yourself and you say it about yourself, so then, on some level, you feel a greater sense of obligation than if somebody else tells you to do something. But in any event, that is just interesting that Tosfos raises that. But so the question is, why did Moshe say that that the Jewish people needed to swear based on his knowledge and God's knowledge? Why didn't he just say that they should perform all the mitzvot? Doesn't it show that we're worried about the thinking that is in the mind of the person who's making the oath? So, no, it's not about the thinking that's in the mind it's how everybody understands it. But the issue is, Mishum da'avodas kochavim nami ikri Eloka. The issue, or Eloha. The point is that God, idols are also called gods. Diksiv Elohei chesed, Elohei zahav. We have a prohibition not to make gods of silver and gods of gold. And so as a result, they are called the same word in Hebrew. obviously when we refer to God, we use the word Elokeh, so we don't actually use God's name. And when we refer to other gods, we refer to Elohe because they're not gods. But in any event, the bottom line is that it's not because of the interpretation that the people who are swearing are going to give it. It's the interpretation that the world as a whole could give it, because the word is used in two different contexts. So that's why Moshe needs to clarify whose mind it is. All right, but Torah. So now we're going to go on a long series of questions, as you can see on your screen. Long series of questions saying, well, why couldn't Moshe say X? And we're going to reject all of them until we get to the final one. And we'll say, you know what? That actually could have worked. And then we'll have to come up with a different answer. Because again, the point is that maybe Moshe could have said it in a way that doesn't rely on him referencing his own understanding and God's understanding. Why didn't he just say that they have to fulfill the Torah? Chada Torah. The answer is maybe we're worried about one Torah, as Rashi explains, that we have the Torah Shebiksav and the Torah Shebal Peh, and if he just says to fulfill the Torah, maybe it means only one of them. All right, so then let him say that that their Jewish people will fulfill both Torahs. No, the problem is Torah's Chatas, Torah's Asham. We have in the Torah also means procedures. And so as a result, it could be that he's referring to the procedures of dealing with a sin offering and an Asham offering. So, Kaimu Kola Torah Kula. All right, so say, observe the entire Torah. So avodas kochavim, maybe it's only referring to idol worship, to Amar Mar, because it said chamura avodas kochavim. How severe is the commandment of avodas kochavim? Should call a kofar, but anybody who says that they're not going to engage in avodas kochavim, kamoda b'kol Torah kula. It's as if you fulfilled the entire Torah. So if you need to make sure that you have a good mitzvah that you're holding, you should always say, I'm not going to engage in any idol worship. And of course, it's important that we say that even today, because there's people and things that many people treat like an idol. All right, so that doesn't work. So say that they're going to perform the commandments, meaning that it's going to be they're referring to one commandment as the entire Torah. As everything. Well, chad mitzvah, maybe it only means one commandment. So kaimo mitzvot, say that you're going to fulfill the mitzvot, the commandments. Tarti, well, that would only be two commandments, because we understand it in the most minimal way possible. Kol mitzvah kulan, say that you're going to observe all of the mitzvahs. Mitzvah tzitzis. Well, then there's the mitzvah of tzitzis. To Amar Mar, because again, there's a statement. Shkula mitzvah tzitzis, keneged kol mitzvahs. Kulan, that the mitzvah of tzitzis is almost like the entire every other mitzvah. As Rashi points out, 1, 2, 3, from the bottom of the narrow lines in Rashi, it's about 10 lines up in the narrow lines. Shkula mitzvah tzitzis kekol mitzvot. Tiksiv uzachartem as kol mitzvot Hashem. That we say every day when we say the Kriya Shema, right? We say that in the last paragraph, from Parsha Shlach Lecha, which I guess is in 3 weeks, so maybe we can call that a Daf Yomi coincidence.
That's something in June just mentioned?
What?
You said something in June?
Yeah, something in June. So that we're going to read the Torah that talks about tzitzis. So the point is, it says that we refers to all the mitzvos, and gematria, the numerical value associated with the word tzitzis, shalash sheish meyos. Tzaddik is 90. Yud is 10, Tzaddik is 90, Yud is 10, that sums to 200. The Tuf at the end is 400. 200 plus 400 is 600. So we have 600. Now, how do we get the rest? Shmona chutim. Every corner has 8 strings. It's 4 strings, but it's doubled over, so it looks like 8. Wow. Chamisha sharim, and every corner has 5 knots. So if you add 600 plus 8 plus 5, you get
1,300 is about
613. 613. So we get 613, and that's how Harei Yud Gimel. That's 613 mitzvot. So as a result, that's how we can understand that tzitzis is all encompassing. So v'lei malahu kaimo sheish me'os.
Who gets the money? Does money involved?
No money involved. So kaimo sheish me'os shlosh esrei mitzvot. So why don't we just say that you're fulfilling all 613 mitzvot? You know what? That could have worked. That could have worked. So as a result, the Gemara says, you know what? Ulatamech, according to your the issue is that it's not about the understanding. The point is that it's not according to the understanding. It's lemalahu al dati. If it was all about the understanding, Moshe could have just referred to himself. Why did Moshe also refer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Al das hamakom lamali, right? So according to you, who were saying that he's focusing on his own intention in order to ensure that we have the proper understanding, why does he mention himself? And the answer to that question is the following: the point is that an oath has the possibility of being undone. Every oath can be undone with one major exception. The major exception is that if I make an oath based on the knowledge of the entire world, and I say that it's based on the knowledge of the entire world, well, then that oath cannot be undone. As Rashi says, top Rashi, we're now on Kaf Tet Amabet. Hachi Kamar. This is what Kamar Lahu. This is what Moshe is saying to them. Lo al dadchem. I'm not having you swear based on their knowledge. But rather, I'm having you swear based on other people's knowledge. And therefore, you're not going to be able to undo this vow. Because when you make somebody swear to something based on the public's knowledge, ain lo hafara. There is no way to undo it. And so that was what Moshe was telling them, is that he was referring to his own knowledge and to God's knowledge to make it a public thing, to say that I'm having you swear in a way that cannot be undone. But in fact, we do follow the simple reading. And therefore, if he wanted to, he could have said that you're just going to refer to the 613 mitzvot. But he did, and that would have been sufficient. But instead, since he was referring anyway to his own knowledge and to that knowledge of God, he could use the simple understanding of observing the mitzvot. So now we go back to our Mishnah, and our Mishnah said the snake like a beam. So and we ask, well, maybe you could have such a large snake, Nakash Gekoris base Babad, that you have a beam that's the size of a snake the size of a beam in an olive press. Below, is that really something that can't be? In the days of Shavar Malka, or Vasa Tivna, there was a snake that was able to eat 13 stablefuls of hay. So that's pretty big. That's certainly as big as an olive press. So Amar Shmuel b'taruf. Now it was where the snake had some striations on it. Here it defines it as spotted, but I think it means more. It actually notes here in the note that it's more literally grooved. And so if you take a look at a viper, you'll see that there are like these groovings on its neck when it sort of it gets ready to strike. Exactly. Kulonami mitraf trifin. But all snakes have that kind of grooving. So bishigabo taruf. Well, no, all snakes have that that kind of grooving when on their neck, but they don't have it on their back. And so if somebody swears that I saw a humongous snake as big as a beam and it had groovings on its back as opposed to on its neck, so then that's going to be the case that we're going to say is a false oath. So the bottom line is that if we swear something that's certainly false, we're going to know about it. So, all right. So now the final case, if I swear that I'm going to eat the cookie and then I swear a chocolate chip cookie and we swear that I'm not going to eat it. So, so of course, if in fact I don't eat it, I'm going to be liable for swearing falsely, the Shevuot Bitoy, the oath of an utterance. But about the second oath, even if I don't eat it, the cookie, I should have violated the second oath, because the second oath that I'm not going to eat the cookie was still a vain oath because it violated my first oath. It contradicted my first oath. So Hare Yatzisa Shvuah Shav, he still spoke that vain oath. So Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, Tnei Af al Hashvuas Bitoy. Yeah, you're exactly right. You should say that it means even, as Rashi says, last Rashi before the Mishnah. And this is what it's saying. Achla, if you eat the cookie, which is what you swear you're going to do in your first oath, of our Shvuas Shav. Well, then you violated the Shvuas Shav because you said in your second oath that you're not going to eat the cookie. Lechuda, and you've only violated that. Lo achla. But if you did not eat the cookie, well then abar al shteyim, you violated both oaths. Al shvuas bitoy shelo kiyam, of the shvuas bitoy because you did not fulfill it. The al shvuas shav af al pishakima, and you violated the shvuas shav even though you did exactly what you said you were going to do. In the second oath, you say you're not going to eat the cookie, and you didn't eat the cookie. But you know what? Because you made that oath after saying first that you swear that you're going to eat the cookie, that oath in and of itself, irrespective of what you did, is going to be a violation of Shvuas Shav. Okay,
So what happens now?
So if the person did it on purpose, he is going to get 2 sets of lashes if he was sufficiently warned. Okay. Shvuas Bitoy. So now we go back to Shvuas Bitoy and we say, actually, this last Mishnah is, oh, sorry for not scrolling. This last Mishnah is now going to return us to the discussion of various aspects of Shvuas Bitoy and Shvuas Shav. It's sort of like a miscellaneous categorization. It identifies who can make these oaths. In some ways, it might have been helpful to have this at the very beginning, but we get it at the very end. Shvuas Bitoy. So we have this oath of utterance. Again, it's I swear that I'm going to do something. I swear I'm not going to do something. I swear I did something. I swear I didn't do something. Okay? So no heges ba'anashim u'banashim. It could be a man or woman who makes that oath and violates that oath and is subject to a punishment. Bekrovim u'rechokim. It doesn't make a difference whether the person swears about something that's related to their relatives or about somebody else. It doesn't make a difference. There's no sense of being a relative because when we're going, this is distinguishing from oaths in court. Because if I were your brother, Stan, and I try to get you to testify for me in court, and you swear that you're not going to be able to testify in court, it doesn't make a difference because you can't testify for me in court because you're my brother. So the point is that that this is trying to distinguish from that case. And it doesn't make a difference, as Rashi explains, whether you're qualified to testify in court or not qualified to testify in court. Bifnei based in, shelo b'fnei based in, and it doesn't make a difference whether you make a shvius bitoy, that oath, in court or out of court. Mipi atzmo, but the key is that it comes out of your mouth. Now, we are going to see at the end of this Mishnah that it doesn't have to come out of your mouth. But at the moment, if it comes out of your mouth, then for sure you're going to be liable. Okay? V'chayavin al zedona makos. And for that sin of violating a shvuas bitoy, you are going to be subject to lashes if you did it willfully, and if you do it inadvertently, if you do it unwittingly, so then you are going to be subject to a korban olav yored, a variable chatas offering. Shvuas shav. What about a shvuas shav? How about that one? How does that apply? Again, no heges ba'anashim u'manashim. It applies both to men and women. Berchokim u'v'krovim. It applies both to relatives and non-relatives. B'ksherim u'v'sulim. It applies to people who are kosher to testify and people who are not kosher to testify. B'fnei beis u'v'shelo beis. It applies whether you're in court or you're outside of court. U'mipi atzmo. And it applies when the person himself said it. Okay? So that is, again, and b'chayavin al zedona makos al shigigasapatur. And again, saying now for the third time, we had it in the last Mishnah, we had it in the Mishnah before that, and now we have it in the Mishnah again, making very clear that when it comes to sinning intentionally with a vain oath, you're subject to lashes. But if you don't sin intentionally, if you did it by accident, then you're not subject to any penalty. Achazu, the achazu. Now, both with respect to this one and that one, meaning with respect to both the shvuas bitoy and shvuas shav, hamushba mipi acherim chayiv. You are liable if somebody else effectively gets you to swear. And what does that mean? So lo achalti hayom, I didn't eat today, is what person number one says. V'lo hanachti tefillin hayom, or I didn't put on tefillin today. Now, note, I did not eat today. That's a shvuas bitoy. And I did not put on tefillin today is a shvuas shav, because that's an oath about violating a mitzvah. So mashbiach ani, and then somebody else responds to him, swear to me that you didn't do that. Don't just say it. I want an oath. I want you to swear me. V'amar amen. And the person says back amen. So that one word amen, which says I agree, so chayav. Now he is liable. He is going, it's as if he swore. Now the Gemara is going to point out, I thought you said mipi atzmo, that it has to be from his own mouth, and now we're seeming to say that it doesn't have to be in his own mouth. So how do we understand that? So again, in the end, we're going to explain that it depends on whether the person says amen. If the person says amen, well then that's going to make the person as if he swore. And if he doesn't say amen, well then it doesn't work because it has to come out of his mouth. So Amar Shmuel, Kol ha'one amen achar shvua, anybody who says amen after an oath, kamotzi shvua b'fid dami. It's as if it came out of his own mouth. Diksiva amra ha'isha amen amen. That the proof text is from the Chumash, where it talks about sota. That's actually not this week's parsha. This week's parsha is Bamidbar, but next week's parsha is Naso, and that parsha has that in it. Okay. Amar Rav Papa Mishmei de Rava. Rav Papa says in the name of Rava, Masdisin uvraisa nami daika. We can, if you listen closely to a distinction made between a Mishnah and a Brisa, we can also highlight the point made by Shmuel that amen causes one to have, it's as if they made the oath. Dikadani, because we have a Mishnah. Now, this Mishnah on its own doesn't prove anything. In fact, it arguably suggests the opposite, because listen to what it says. Shuas ha'edus, when it comes to the oath about testimony, we're going to see no heges ba'anashim. It applies to this is a Mishnah. This is a Mishnah on Daf Lamud Amud Aleph. So it's I think actually the next Mishnah that we'll have at the beginning of the 4th chapter. Yeah. So that's going to be essentially this way we're going to start tomorrow. So we have a preview now. When it comes to oaths regarding testimony, it only applies to men, not women, because only men are able to testify in court. It only applies to people who are not relatives, not to people who are relatives. And it only people who are kosher, and not people who are not kosher to testify, like a gambler. And it only applies somebody to who's eligible to testify. But it does apply whether it's in court or outside of court. When it comes from somebody, from the mouth of the person himself. But if it comes from the mouth of others, then it's only going to be applicable if the person denies knowledge in Beis Din. Divrei Rebbe Meir. That's what Rebbe Meir says. There's our Rebbe Meir, and now we're going to get a brisa where it's also Rebbe Meir. So again, according to this brisa, if the court says to the witness, that do you have any testimony, and he denies it in court, well, then that's going to be considered like an oath. But at the moment, if he denies it outside of court, it's not considered like an oath. But now our brisa is going to show that even outside of court, it could be an oath. V'tanya b'brisa, shvuas ha'edus ketzud. What's an example? How does the oath of testimony work? Amar la'edim. Person says to the witnesses, Bo v'heyuduni, come and testify for me. Shvua she'ein lanu yodim l'cha edus. And then they say back, we swear that we don't know any testimony for you. Osha Amru ein anu yodim l'cha edus, or they swear that we don't know any testimony, or they just say that they don't know any testimony. Mashpiani aleichem, and then he says, well, swear to me that. V'amru lo amen, and they say back to him, amen. Bein b'fnei Beis Din, bein shelo b'fnei Beis Din. Well, then it doesn't make a difference whether that happened in court or outside of court. Bein mipi atzmo, bein mipi acherim. Doesn't make a difference whether he said the oath himself or it was said by others and he says amen. Kevin shekafru b'hen chayavin. Once, because he's denied it, he is going to be liable. Divrei Rebbe Meir. So kashina adadi. These two statements of Rebbe Meir are inconsistent. In one statement, it only applies in court. In the other statement, it applies even outside of court. So elalav shmamina had anan ana amen. No, the answer is that's where he says amen. If he says amen, well, then it applies even outside of court. Hadalo on amen. And the other one in the Mishnah, it's where he does not say amen. And so as a result, it only applies in court. Shma mina, we show that therefore amen is like it's coming out of your own mouth. Amar Ravina, Mishmei de Rava, Masdisa Dahacha, Nami Daika. You can make that same point from our Mishnah. Because Hadatani, what did our Mishnah say? Shuas bitoine hagas ba'anashim uvanashim, birachokim uvakrovim uksherim uvselim psulim bifnei beis din v'shalo bifnei beis din. That it said all of these things. It applies to men and to women. It applies to non-relatives and to relatives. It applies to kosher witnesses and non-kosher witnesses. And it applies in court and it applies out of court. And what did we say? Mipi atzmo. Mipi atzmo in mipi acherim lo. It's implying that it's only when it comes out of his own mouth and not when it comes out of somebody else's mouth. But katani seva. But at the end of that Mishnah, the end of the Mishnah that we just learned, zeh, we said both with respect to a shvuas bitoy and with respect to a shvuas shav, mushba mipi acherim chayav. That if somebody else gets the person to swear, then they're going to be liable. Koshina adadi. It seems to be inconsistent. Elav shmamina hada ana amen hada lo ana amen. That where the person says amen, so then it doesn't make a difference where the person adjures to is forced to swear. Doesn't make a difference who the person is. When they say amen, it's as if the oath came out of their mouth.
Yes.
But if in fact they didn't say amen, well then the oath is not. It didn't come out of their mouth. So 1 second, now it's so obvious. We've now made it so clear that Shmuel is right. Vela Shmuel might kamashmalan. What is Shmuel teaching us in that case? So Dukya Demasnisin kamashmalan. What he's teaching us is how we should read the Mishnah. That we shouldn't read it as an inconsistency between the beginning of the Mishnah and the end of the Mishnah, but rather we should read it in some ways. That's how we read it because we knew where I knew where the Gemara was going. But the answer is that the first part of the Mishnah is saying that if you don't say amen, then it has to come out of your mouth. And if you do say amen, then it doesn't have to come out of your mouth. So hadron alach shvuas shtayim, hadron alach shvuas shtayim, hadron alach shvuas shtayim. So now we have completed the third chapter of Maseches Shevuos. Oh, my apologies for not scrolling. So stay tuned tomorrow for the start of the fourth chapter of Shevuos, where we will discuss oaths of testimony, the oaths that we specifically referenced just now. Shabbat shalom. Have a wonderful Shabbos. Looking forward to continuing our learning together.
Thank you.
I believe that we are meeting
Monday,
on Monday and Tuesday. I think tomorrow we're probably meeting Motzi Shabbos with Ellie, and I believe Ellie is also leading Monday and Tuesday during the course of the day. But keep an eye out on the WhatsApp for specific times. It could be that on Tuesday he's meeting after Yontif. But so keep an eye on, like I said,
Monday, Sunday night and Monday
absolutely Sunday night and Monday night. It's Shavuos. Looking forward to celebrating with everybody. Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach. Okay, hold on just a second.
night.
yes, see you.